What's going on, everybody? It's the Bull Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot of talk recently about the Chicago Bulls ahead of their 6-game win streak and hopefully looking to make it a 7-game win streak against the Memphis Grizzlies. And the main talk around the Chicago Bulls right now is obviously our best player in DeMar DeRozan having an MVP caliber season. And I guess the question is that everybody's been answering recently. Again, Stephen A. Smith, even guys like JJ Redick have been talking about it. Kendrick Perkins has been talking about it. Can DeMar DeRozan win the MVP this season? And we're going to be talking all about that in this video. My personal beliefs on the situation and whether it's likely or unlikely he can win the MVP this season. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bull Show. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the season DeMar DeRozan is having and whether or not it is worthy of being named the MVP of this season. So, his season averages playing around 56, I believe, games so far. His averages have been 28.3 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 5.1 assists, shooting 52% from the field and shooting 35% from the three-point line. Now, in almost every single one of these categories, he has been improved from his NBA career stats, his Spurs stats, and for his Raptors stats as well. He's having a terrific season in almost every sense of the word. His efficiency for a guy that's a shooting guard, small forward, shooting mid-ranges and threes, unbelievably strong at 52%. His highest three-point percentage of his career is again in this season for the Chicago Bulls. And the numbers don't lie. The wins for the Chicago Bulls don't lie either. We are currently sitting first in the Eastern Conference, half a game in front of the Miami Heat, and that's rightfully where we deserve to be. And we've done it with a relatively unhealthy squad for the majority of the season. Only in a few and far between games have we seen a fully healthy Chicago Bulls team. And DeMar DeRozan the past few games, the past few months, has had to carry the load and pick up the Chicago Bulls team where all things felt lost. He had a terrific month of December where arguably he could have been the player of the month. I think that went to Joel Embiid. I have no doubts in my mind he will be the player of the month of February for the Eastern Conference. If that doesn't happen, I don't know what will. But he's had a lot of good moments in this season. And the question is, can he win the MVP? Now, before we get into what I believe, there are a lot of people that have been saying that they've been wrong about DeMar DeRozan. A lot of the mainstream media guys, and I know mainstream media isn't the most popular thing on this channel. Many people have something to say against mainstream media. Maybe people support mainstream media. I don't really know. But in terms of what I've seen, a lot of people that comment on these YouTube videos don't like the mainstream media. And I can understand that. But obviously, it's not whether or not they first predicted things to go wrong or right for the Chicago Bulls. For me personally, it's when they admit that they're wrong. If something goes wrong and they can admit, they take it as a man or whoever says it, they admit when they're wrong and they learn their lesson in many ways and just not stick with the same answer just because that's what they truly believe. When something is wrong and they admit it, that's when I'm okay. I don't really have a problem with someone saying DeMar DeRozan is not going to be an MVP and then he ends up winning MVP and they admit that they were wrong. That's fine. That's what an opinion is at the end of the day. You get things right, you get things wrong. So when people like Stephen A. Smith talk about DeMar DeRozan winning the MVP and saying that there's a good chance at the moment that he's favored over Joel Embiid to win the MVP, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. If he said 3 months ago that he doesn't think DeMar DeRozan is an MVP caliber guy, whatever it is, whatever the conversation is at that point, as long as you can admit that you're wrong, I don't have an issue with the mainstream media, and that's why I don't tend to take what they say too seriously. But what I don't like is when people continue to have the same response, even if it's completely and utterly wrong. So whoever does have that same response, I want to see what Bleacher Report has to say about the DeMar DeRozan situation, because at the end of the day, they were the one that wrote an article about the worst free agent signing, and number one on that list was DeMar DeRozan. And I want to see what they have to say about the MVP caliber season, because I'm sure whoever wrote that will be admitting right now that they're wrong if they had the chance, but they've been very quiet on that front. So guys like JJ Redick as well admitted that he was wrong about the Chicago Bulls. There's been so many people that have had to wait and see what the outcome will be and either admit that they're right or admit that they're wrong. And that is perfectly okay in my eyes. But now moving into the DeMar DeRozan MVP season. Well, first things first, there's a lot of things that comes down to the MVP. Who is the most valuable player on your team? So I guess the question is, one, the record, and I think the record is at the moment is perfectly fine. I think obviously being first in the Eastern Conference should be more than enough to secure DeMar DeRozan an MVP if he's in contention. Being first is the best you could possibly be in the Eastern Conference. You can't really control what the West do, but in terms of being efficient like he has been and being first in the Eastern Conference, that does put him in contention for MVP in my opinion. Then you move into the story. Is there a story there behind DeMar DeRozan winning the MVP? Because at the end of the day, as great as it is to be the best player on the best team in the world, sometimes stories edges out being the best player. I don't make the rules, I don't write the narrative, but sometimes it's just the way that it is. There have been numerous players that have been robbed out of MVPs because other players have the story behind them. And I think DeMar DeRozan has a story behind him. Obviously, coming from the Toronto Raptors, getting traded before that championship win that they had, going to the San Antonio Spurs, not getting the best out of his career in San Antonio, but still performing at an okay level, snubbed from a couple of All-Star games in San Antonio, and then moves to Chicago. And obviously, in his first year, where we're the underdogs, where people said would finish 11th, where people called him the worst signing in free agency, there's clearly a story there for DeMar DeRozan. So I think he has the story down. I think he has the seeds down. Obviously, the moments as well, I think he has down as well. He's made history this season with 35 points in 8, I think it's now 8 consecutive games. He's made history there and he's continuing to elevate and make that history even more outstanding. So that's obviously a moment in the Chicago Bulls history and the moment in the NBA that DeMar DeRozan can obviously secure. And I guess another moment that you could say is the back-to-back game winners between the Indiana Pacers and the Washington Wizards. The first time that's ever happened in the NBA. The other one being Larry Bird, but there was a day in between. This was a back-to-back night and back-to-back buzzer beaters. So there are 2 moments there that you could give to DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, he's an all-star as well. That counts towards it. And I guess the fourth thing is the competition that he has against him. And this is the hardest one to put with DeMar DeRozan, because if you're asking who do you think is in competition with that MVP conversation, you instantly think of guys like Joel Embiid, who's having an extremely outstanding season himself, and he deserves to be MVP in my opinion, just as much as DeMar DeRozan. Nikola Jokic, who's been a phenomenal player for the last 2 years. He was MVP last year, and I think he's going to be in a good conversation to be MVP this year. You put guys like Steph Curry, who I don't personally think is going to win the MVP, but DeMar DeRozan is right up there in that conversation. Guys like Kevin Durant, when he returns, will definitely get a lot of talk around them as well. So there's a lot of conversations for the MVP, and there are numerous numbers of players that can be put in that conversation. But DeMar DeRozan is up there, and that's the biggest thing to take away if you're a Chicago Bulls fan. DeMar DeRozan is in that conversation. There is not one person that you can say with so heartedly in your heart of hearts that probably is 100% more deserving than DeMar DeRozan, let's say. So, for example, if you talk about Joel Embiid winning the MVP and you believe he will win the MVP, that's perfectly fine. But if you can't even put DeMar DeRozan in the conversation, that's a bit naive in my opinion. He's always going to be part of the talking points in the MVP conversation. 90% of the league, 90% of people that you talk about, when they bring up the MVP, they will probably bring up DeMar DeRozan in one way or another. I'm not saying that they're going to say DeMar's going to win the MVP, but they're definitely going to say he's in conversations. So all of those things really do matter. So do I think he will win the MVP? Personally, I think the way that the narrative and everything has gone, it's still going to be a very tough ride for DeMar DeRozan to win the MVP, unless he continues to make that history, continue scoring those 35-point performances for the Chicago Bulls. Then, of course, I think he can win MVP. I think he will win MVP if he keeps on doing that. Obviously, when our players are fully healthy and returning, we might not see DeMar DeRozan need to do that every single night. And that will obviously limit what he can do. The same with Philadelphia. Joel Embiid won't need to score 35, 40 points every single night anymore because he's got James Harden on his team. So they will end up dividing the points as well. So, look, there's a big chance DeMar DeRozan can win MVP, but I'm not going to go out there and say 100% he's going to, because I think there's a lot of competition out there, and obviously it depends on how other players go throughout their season as well. It'd be very naive of me just to say, and a bit biased I should say as well, that DeMar DeRozan will win MVP this season. But to say he doesn't have a chance, to say he's not one of the favourites, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I think he does have a chance, and I really, 100% in my heart believe he's one of the favourites to win that MVP award. And I guess all it comes down to now is time and performances. DeMar has to keep up his level of performances. I'm sure he wants to be the MVP. There's a reason why he's playing like this, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, he might not have played like this because he's their MVP or he wanted to be MVP, but he's played so well this season that if he gives up now or if he doesn't deliver now in the final stretches of the period, I'm sure he'll be very upset with himself. So he has a lot to prove and he has a lot to go through to win that MVP, but he's definitely up there. He's one of the favorites. People will be mentioning him. People will be voting for him as the MVP, and I guess time will tell whether or not he will end up holding that award at the end of the season. All things considered, I really hope it does happen. There's been nothing more, in my opinion, than I would love to see DeMar DeRozan win an MVP. Again, the last MVP since Derrick Rose. And let's be honest, we all love Derrick Rose. He's always going to be one of Chicago's own. He's in our hearts. He will always be there. He will never leave. But DeMar DeRozan's having a better season than what Derrick Rose is having. That's just the way that it is. The NBA has evolved and stats have multiplied since when Derrick Rose last won MVP. And DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion, is having a better season. So I'm really rooting for him and I hope he can get the job done. With that being said, I'm going to end this video here. Let me know in the comments below who you think will win the MVP award. But with a lot of the media talking about it, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on the situation. Again, we've got a game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Looking forward to that. Memphis are a strong team. I'm not sure Ja Morant's going to be playing in this game or not. I believe there was a notification saying that he ended up getting hurt in his last game. But I'm sure Ja Morant, if he is okay, he will be playing. And of course, I'd love to see Ja Morant. I always love watching Ja Morant play. Even if it's against my team, I'd love to see him there. So let's hope for the best for both teams. And let's hope we can walk away with the win. And obviously, the MVP for DeMar. Take care and peace.